Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Musical, lyrical lingo. Every episode a new bingo. Laugh and sing, go with the flow. Tune in as the memories grow.
Hello and welcome to Musical Lyrical Lingo. We're your hosts, Tim
And LJ today, and every week we will be discussing musicals, but specifically what they taught us.
Hello, hello, hello.
You just testing
As we're recording, it is West End Live weekend.
I know. So many fab performances have already taken
Well,
place.
I was going to ask, obviously, have you been watching them?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't watched a thing yet. I think I'm going to have a bit of a binge tonight. I'm just going to sit with my dinner and just watch all of the videos on YouTube. So
That sounds
obviously we're recording on a Sunday, full disclosure. So the Saturday's already happened.
Yep.
So what am I to look out for?
Well, Saturday there was definitely Hercules and Cabaret.
Okay.
With Rob and Hannah Dodd.
Nice. Can I just check on the Hercules?
Yes.
Because a few outings that we've had so far have been a bit dodgy
Okay.
on like public television shows. They've just been a bit ropesville. All
it
good?
Was, can't say I'm in love or won't say I'm in love, and
Yeah.
it was great.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And what else am I looking out for then?
Cabaret and I've forgotten what else was there.
Not that good then.
No, I'm trying to see what I've seen. I think I was just mesmerised by those two.
Okay. And what are you looking forward to this, on the Sunday billing
I
then?
can't remember who's all on Sunday.
And
There's
I'm not
been
going
so
back to
many.
find that big list. It's a good turnout, I think, for the show.
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of shows about at the moment.
And I'm pretty sure yesterday they were at like full capacity and they had to stop people coming in.
Yeah, they also had put out a heat warning, hadn't they? Because it is hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So that's what's happening on this side of the pond. On the other side of the pond, was it last weekend or the weekend before that the Tonys were on? Was it 2 weekends ago? Yeah. So maybe Happy Ending won the Tony for Best Musical. Have you listened to the soundtrack?
No.
I did go and listen to it.
you?
It's really beautiful. Like
Right,
the
okay.
music's gorgeous. I think the plot I'm still a bit confused about, but you never know. It might be one for a future episode. Purpose won Best Play. Sunset Boulevard won Best Revival of a Musical, beating off Audrey McDonough's Gypsy. So I thought there was there was a bit of competition there, wasn't there? Darren Criss won Best Leading Actor for his role in maybe Happy Ending. It's really lovely because I remember him in Glee.
Well, isn't that like 2 years in a row now? Or maybe it's 3 years in a row now that somebody from Glee has won
Yeah.
the Tony?
They're doing well,
Yeah.
the Gleeks. Best performance by a leading actress in a musical did go to Nicole Scherzinger for Sunset Boulevard. So well on her. That's both sides of the pond. She's been given a nod for her performance as Norma Desmond.
And not that she isn't deserving of it, because I think she has been fab, not that I've seen it live.
Yeah.
But I'm shocked that she got the Tony because of who she was up against.
Like,
it was like amazing.
Crazy talent in that category.
Yeah.
You know, you had Megan Hilty, Jennifer Samard. I need to learn how to say her surname. Audrey McDonald. Yeah. I felt a wee bit sad for Death Becomes Her because they were nominated for loads and they didn't really walk away with very many.
But I think it's just what that happens. We've seen this throughout this podcast, is sometimes who you're up against, it's just a really tough year. And it's
That's
not, if it had been another year where there maybe wasn't as many outstanding musicals, you probably would have won. And listen, Wicked didn't win the Tony.
This
and
is
Wicked's
it.
still around.
Like
so.
we have had, that's a really good idea for an episode. We should do an episode on those musicals that didn't get the Tony.
Yeah,
That'd be quite
good.
cool to look
I'll write
into.
that down.
Like the biggest shocks.
Yeah.
Wicked being one of them, obviously. And then one more I wanted to mention was just Jack Malone, homegrown talent for Operation Mincemeat. So it's also been successful on both sides of the pond. Really very, very exciting. And I don't know what happened this year. It's almost like the podcast has done its job again. Do you remember we were talking about how annoying it is that now you can't seem to be able to see any like clips?
Yep.
What's happened? Because CBS were all over it this year.
I know.
Like I was able to watch almost every performance that was done.
Yeah. I think maybe they just heard our cries.
I think they listen to us. I think we have such sway in things now in the world of musical theatre. Like we pull the strings, really, don't we?
Yeah.
Audrey McDonald's performance was my standout.
Outstanding. And she probably the first way I've ever seen Mama Rose played like that.
Yeah.
Psychotic.
Yeah, and just her performance was so unique to any of the others. Do you know what I mean? And like, let's be honest, Mama Rose has been done many times by many actresses at the top of their game. So yeah, it was quite exciting to be able to actually see that performance this time.
That's great. Are you going to talk about the controversy that's going on in the West End at the moment?
Can I talk about an issue in Broadway first, just for a wee minute? So, it's really interesting because I came across a video of Susan Stroman, so, you know, theatre producer, and she was very openly putting herself out there, kind of just saying that she doesn't like the Broadway system and how shows come about or how decisions as to whether shows make it or don't make it come about in Broadway. And she says as a producer, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to put a show on in Broadway because of it. And the way the Broadway system works, for people who didn't realise, and I didn't really realise, is that it goes on the show's grosses. And it makes more sense to me now as an adult because I remember back in the day, like looking at BroadwayWorld.com and like there's a section on, you know, that's a brilliant website which documents how much money all these shows are making. And I was like, that's really weird information to be out there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But it now makes sense because shows make it or break it based on how much money they're making. And the point that Susan Stroman was making was that, you know, in the West End, it's much easier to put on new work because that new work is given a bit of time to embed itself and it's given a bit of a chance to become a hit or to be successful. Whereas in Broadway, if it doesn't hit those high grossing figures within the first couple of months, then that's it. And it's the end of. Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure it's, now I could have got this wrong, but I just think it's from the research in Beetlejuice. It's like within the first 12 weeks. Yeah. And it's a random selection because this is what happened to Beetlejuice. Is they were tested, you know, as in their sales were tested, say one random Wednesday to Saturday or something like that. And it happened to be a real slump. But the 11 weeks on either side of that test, the show was sold out. So it just is like a luck of the draw, isn't it?
Well, this is it. So then, following on from that, Broadway's Smash, the musical, has became the first post-Tony casualty because of this reason. So it's going to end, and I can't believe I'm saying this because fans have waited so long for a Smash musical, but it's going to close. It's going to finish its run at the Imperial Theatre on today. Yeah. Sunday the 22nd of June after 32 previews and 84 regular performances.
Like that's not enough time for a new piece of work to find its feet.
No.
For the cast to find its feet either in and react to audiences, for audiences to like tell people about it, because let's be honest, that's how theatre survives, is word of mouth.
100%. And also if you think of Smash, the TV show, and how successful it was, I think the musical would have had people coming from near and far, but you got to give them time to get there.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
And prices are too expensive. It's not like people can just hop on a train and go in, to New York or even go to London. You're having to really save these things for major events now, and
100%.
That's a problem too. Producers are expecting them to make so much money quicker when actually we don't all have that disposable income that we maybe had like 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and that's another one of the casualties is Real Women Have Curves, the musical, which, I mean, they did a performance at the Tonys, and then, a week later, they're given their closing notice.
And Cabaret's closing as well.
And Cabaret is closing, and on that, Billy Porter and Mauritius Wallace, who were in Cabaret in the West End, they are going over to be the final stars to appear in that. Yeah, it's closing on the 19th of October.
Yeah, and they have said that it just hasn't been as successful on Broadway as it has been in the West End.
Yeah.
And, they're obviously hoping with bringing Billy and Marisha over that will help generate some income.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think it's wow enough for Broadway.
I think they're just not giving, as you say, they're just not giving things enough time.
That's it. I mean, they've had some fantastic names in Cabaret across the water. So, Billy Porter and Marisha Wallace are taken over from Eva Noblezada and Orville Peck.
I know.
If they're not drawn in the audience, nobody will. Yeah. So I thought it was quite interesting to have come across that chat, and she was so brave. Like, as a producer, she was really brave to kind of say it's not a great system. They need to look at it. There's too many shows that are casualties because of it, and then you see a massive show like Smash,
close.
Like, what a disaster for them.
Yeah, and it was in workshop for a long time. It wasn't like it was a really quick turnaround or anything like that. And
I also don't like the reviews of it have been good. Like, I don't think it was a bit of a flop of a show. Do you know what I mean? It's quite interesting, isn't it? How the two different epicenters of musical theatre work in such different ways. But moving back to the West End, then, are you talking about the Palladium's production of Evita?
I think I might be,
Rachel Ziegler, So the issue is that she is performing the most iconic song in that show on the actual balcony of the Palladium, and it's being filmed and broadcast into the theatre. Yeah. So people are complaining that people who have paid money to see the tickets are watching it on a screen, whereas
you can walk by it and watch
people
it live.
Walking by outside the theatre are able to watch it live. Yeah, I totally take their point. I mean, I think it's a stroke of genius from the production team, who is Jamie Lloyd. Yeah. But I also kind of think, it's very clever, but also we've just seen you do something similar like that in Sunset Boulevard with...
But maybe that's just his style, because you also at the end, Shay comes out in his boxers.
Yeah, comes out in his boxers. This time Shay is covered, I think it looks like white and like baby blue paint, the colours of the flag, whereas in Sunset it was blood. But you also, I don't want to discredit him, because he is, I would love to see a production done by him. I would love to see Evita. But I'm kind of going, is it becoming a bit gimmicky now and obvious now? This is what he does. He does something to camera, which is then, from outside the venue, and it's broadcast to inside. Does his leading man strip down to his boxers for some reason and get covered in something? It's very samey. Yes. Which I'm surprised at.
I'm surprised at because, yes, they're two Andrew Lloyd Webber shows.
Yeah.
But they're not they're not the same.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to even think. It's not
but also directors don't repeat the same thing over and over and over again, from one performance to the next, production to the next.
No, but maybe their signature style will be in it. If you watch a Wes Anderson film, you can tell it's Wes Anderson because of his style, and the same with Steven Spielberg.
Because of his style, but it won't do the same thing.
No, but...
And he's just doing the same thing.
like, we haven't seen it, so it seems like he's just doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I would flippin' love to see her, and she's really good.
Yeah.
Her Evita's excellent from the videos I've seen. Like, I'd love to be walking past the Palladium and she comes out onto the balcony and sings her song.
Yeah.
Like, that would be class. But if I've paid money, and those tickets are not going to be cheap.
No, I think that's it. People are paying upwards of 80
yeah.
pounds.
Now, you could argue it's one moment within the whole production, you know, but it's also the moment. Like, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina on the balcony is the...
Yeah.
You know, the pivotal moment in that show that they're seeing on a screen. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe she could do an encore at the end of the show. What do you feel about it?
I mean, I definitely can see the artistic direction as to why he chose maybe to do that. There's a balcony there. It's famous, you know, famously sung on a balcony. But then maybe should have pushed it and made it more submersive for the audience, where they went outside and watched her sing it. You know,
let's just take the whole of the Palladium out onto the streets.
Can't do that because of the numbers.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. I'm just saying, that's where he wanted it.
Yeah, or even have split. So if it was possible, split it in some way where she starts it on stage and ends it on out in the balcony. Yes. I don't know.
Yeah,
just so that they're getting the best of both worlds, maybe. But but it has blown up.
I mean, I love it because then people are talking about theatre.
Yeah,
you
true.
know, and it's all like, it was on this morning. It's
been has it really?
Yeah, people are talking about it.
Oh wow, and right, okay.
I think any conversation where we have musical theatre at the forefront of that conversation is going to make people want to go. And maybe they're not going to want to go and see Evita, but they're maybe then going to go, okay, do you know what? Such and such is on. And, you know, it might get them to have a conversation about, here, do you know what? I went to London once and I seen X, Y, and Z and it was really good. You never know where these conversations could end up. And
true.
I just love when people can experience theatre, no matter where it is.
Yeah. This is a good segue to the musical we're doing today. So, Evita, obviously one of Andrew Lloyd Webber's massive big hits, and Andrew Lloyd Webber seems to be a fan of Jamie Lloyd, and Jamie Lloyd seems to be a fan of Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Absolutely.
So you never know, because today's musical could be the next reincarnation.
You heard it here
Jamie
first.
Lloyd. I know. Could you imagine? Like, I think I'd drop dead if this ever happens. Could you imagine?
Yeah, well, you heard it here first.
That's true. It's been a while since we've looked at another Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, so we're going to return to his catalogue. One that's not as spoken of or hasn't had as many outings as, personally, I feel it should have, because I do like this one. It's Whistle Down the Wind.
Yeah, and I know, and not very many people, as you said, know about it. Some people will say it wasn't one of his best.
I disagree. It's up there in my top 3.
And some people will say that it is one of his best.
Yeah,
so I think it really has a mixed audience.
Yes.
It was another new venture, as in he got a different lyricist.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. So it's a little bit of a different style for Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be something that you would automatically go, that's an Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
You can, a bit like what we're talking, there's hints, there's elements of his style, but it's not in your face an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. Yeah,
no, that I think that's fair to say. It's also another one of those shows that took a bit of tinkering and a bit of changing about before it kind of found its you know.
Though I still feel that it hasn't.
I agree.
Been done justice. Is that right?
Is that what I'm think there's still something that needs to be done to it to make it for us, you know, I think you're right. I think it still is missing something.
Yeah.
Or that might be the difficulty as to why it's not being done.
Could be.
As much. But yeah, Whistle Down the Wind is based on the novel by Mary Haley Bell and the film by Richard Attenborough, and it was directed by Brian Forbes. Andrew Lloyd Webber and Jim Steinman, together with Patricia Knopp and Gail Edwards, who or the co-book writers with Andrew Lloyd Webber, have taken the original story and reset it in Louisiana in 1959.
Yeah, so Jim Steinman, it might be a popular name because he wrote for the likes of Bonnie Tyler and Meatloaf. And I would definitely say if you're a fan of Meatloaf, particularly Battered of Hell, then this music will feel very similar. The music in this musical.
It's quite rocky, isn't it?
Yeah. It did premiere in the National Theatre. I love that theatre. In 1996. Did you know I performed in that theatre as well?
You might have mentioned it on the pod a couple of times, Lauren.
But at that point it was, and something that we constantly see over and over again with Andrew Lloyd Webber, it was a concept album. So in 1998, it was then, as you said, revised, and this revised version ended up in the West End in 1998. It had a UK tour in 2001, a West End revival in 2006, there was a US tour in 2007, and a UK tour in 2010. Now, I do think that there was another UK tour in 2002, and we'll talk about that later on. Not quite now.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, so it was when it opened in Washington DC in 1996. It drew mostly negative reviews, and the Broadway opening that had been scheduled for 1997 was subsequently cancelled. Yeah, and then they brought it to London basically, and opened it in London.
Now, good old Harold Prince directed it.
Yeah, no, that's it.
So it wasn't that there wasn't some great creative people behind it. I just don't know, maybe, I think this is where maybe people don't love it because does need to be a wee bit of, I don't know, something, just more work. It feels like a Play-Doh. It just needs, or, a bread just before it's ready for the oven. It just needs a wee bit more work.
The reworking for London certainly was a much darker production than the one in Washington. And that was revised and directed by Gil Edwards, who had previously worked with Andrew Lloyd Webber on the updated production of Jesus Christ Superstar. Yes. Then in 2001, the late Bill Kenwright,
that's it.
He produced and directed his own production of Whistle Down the Wind for the UK tour, and he was granted a considerable amount of creative freedom.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah, I think, well, it sounds like Andrew Lloyd Webber knew they still hadn't got it right. Yeah. Maybe. So, that freedom was authorized by him, to make significant changes to the dramatic structure. Yeah. And if you're changing the dramatic structure of the musical, it's quite significant amount of changes that must have been made. And then it obviously went on a tour. And then Bill Kenwright was invited to direct the US tour, which began in Houston in 2007. Yeah. However, the planned LA and San Francisco dates were subsequently cancelled then. Yeah. Maybe it's just not an American musical.
Maybe that's
it.
Maybe that's it. Because when Bill Kenwright, and we know that the late great Bill Kenwright did have some amazing creative insight into musicals, but he ended up replacing a section with a new number, which is called The Gang, but he actually got lyricist Don Black in. Okay, yeah. Which again was a slightly different, completely different feel to Jim Steinman, sort of his signature.
It is interesting though, isn't it, when you start to invite more and more creatives in, during that process of changing things, because then I think even the feel of it or the flow of it can become affected. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what is it about?
It's set in America's Deep South in the late 50s, and the musical revolves around a teenager Swallow. First of all, I love the names in this, like Swallow and Spider, and they're really cute. And Swallow is struggling to come to terms with the death of her mother when she discovers a mysterious stranger whom she believes to be Jesus hiding out in her barn. In a town where a miracle is long overdue, the children fight to protect him from the adult world, determined to find an escaped convict hiding in their midst. Yeah. Andrew Lloyd Webber's score combines hauntingly beautiful love songs and then the explosive rock music with lyrics by the acclaimed rock and roll songwriter Jim Steinman. Yeah. I do like it. I like the mixture of it all.
It's definitely a kid's show.
Yes.
It's definitely a kid's show. And one critic, Terry Paddock, said when he was writing for What's on Stage, said there hasn't been such a showcase for West End prodigies since the curtains fell on Oliver.
Okay.
And I think if you see this as a kid's show, you could do it really well because the focus of, obviously they have a lot to do in it, but say sometimes when musicals are put on and they have kids in it, like kids are seen as like an extra rather than the main focus. Well, Oliver and Annie are always kids shows, so you always know that your stars are going to be the children. Well, maybe the problem with this is that they haven't really focused on the children enough, and they've focused on the story with children.
It's so interesting you say that, because when we get to our musical lyrical lingos, we might come back to that point of view of seeing it as a kids show, because obviously when we were introduced to it, we were kids. Now we weren't old enough to be in it. Was Caitlin in it?
Old.
Was Caitlin in it?
Yeah.
Yes, because Adam was. So my brother was in it, and your younger sister was in it, and I was I was so annoyed. I remember sitting in the theater watching them, being really annoyed. Not that they weren't showing that I wasn't, but that they were in this show, because I think, as you say, it is a kids show, and the kids have a really pivotal role in it. And I remember being a slightly older kid feeling that, but we'll get on to it when we come to musical lyrical lingos. There it goes again, though, with the concept album. It was well with it, it was in that realm of this is what he did. Andrew Lloyd Webber,
And then that worked for him for all those big ones like Evita, Superstar, and Joseph, and all of that.
So he released it, didn't he?
Yeah, released it in 98.
In advance of the show's West End premiere. Yeah.
Also, Peter Haple, he wrote for the stage. He said it has everything for Whistle Down the Wind, which I thought was interesting. It has everything. Good tunes, strong story with a real sense of drama and a strong family appeal. Yeah. Which I thought was interesting, because this is another musical that doesn't make me feel good at the end of it. It's not what I'm scared of, but it doesn't make me feel good. I feel a lot of emotion in this musical, a bit like how Les Mis would make me feel. I feel a bit like I need to...
You've been through the mill watching it.
So I think maybe, as what we had sort of said, you said about maybe is cabaret just not all glitz and glam for Broadway? Is that maybe why it didn't work?
Yeah, and this might come across really terribly, but I kind of feel like when you look at the West End and you look at the different music, I think the breadth of what the West End provides audiences is just a bit deeper and darker at times. Do you know what I mean? And I don't like the word that's in my head is sophisticated. I think there's pieces of really sophisticated musical theatre where there's real different levels to what you're seeing. Do you know what I mean? And it's not necessarily big scale. But I might be wrong in that I haven't been to Broadway for a very long time. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe when I was in Broadway, I was younger, so everything did look bigger and brighter and glitzier and more like in your face. But it's those sophisticated pieces of musical theatre that really get me going. Do you know what I mean? I don't need a big dance number anymore or a big chorus show. Like, I'm dying to see Benjamin Button. It's an example of a piece of theatre that I think, or the general feeling I'm getting is it's just really layered and gritty, and do you know what I mean? It's there's an element of sophistication to it. And I do think Whistle Down the Wind has all of those different layers.
Yes, I think what he said is true.
The themes are so gritty. They're and real. Like you can get your teeth into them, and they are real. And
okay, what about your musical lyrical lingos then?
So as you were talking about, it's a kid's show. What I learned from sitting watching it and remembering it as a child was just that the power of hope through the eyes of children, and that how that really came through. I remember watching it, and like the songs that the children sang, like When Children Rule the World, they were like anthems. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, children were in charge, and the children are the heart of this show.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's what that really stood out to me when I was watching it. That, you know, that idea of exploring faith and belief and the power of hope, particularly through the eyes of children who see the world with a different perspective. It highlights that conflict between innocence and prejudice, you know, and how even hardened adults can be touched by the power of belief and compassion. You know, the children's unwavering belief in a stranger that they believe to be Jesus, even when faced with skepticism and danger, is a central theme, you know, and the musical suggests that even those who are perceived as bad can have redemption through acts of kindness and belief.
Yeah, like the children, this is going to be a double negative, isn't it? Children never don't believe that the stranger is Jesus. Like they 100% believe in him, and they have very little evidence, which is faith, isn't it? Yeah. You know, there's sometimes very little evidence, no matter what your faith is on what, but you believe in it because there's something that you're holding on to, and that's majorly what this is about. It's also, as well as about faith, belief, and seeing things through children's eyes, there's a massive bit of loss of innocence. Like the kids have to deal with the fact that their mother died when they're so young. Like that's not something anybody wants to deal with. Yeah. And especially you don't want like a young child to have to deal with that. And also there's a major warning where there is dangers of unchecked belief. You know, the kids believe that this man is Jesus so much. Yeah. And he doesn't correct them at any point. And there is a danger in that not having your facts right.
Yeah, that's it. In essence, it just encourages viewers to question their own beliefs and be open to the possibilities of miracles and appreciate the power of hope and compassion even in the face of adversity. Yeah, yeah. But I remember watching it as a kid going, this is rocking. Like, look at these kids. Like, I'm so proud to be a kid right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. There was a lot of felt like there was power in kids. Yeah. That they could have stood up. And I suppose watching it as well, see, I always think whenever you're watching something that is a small town, now we live in Northern Ireland, which isn't a massive country, but our town is it's a city, is quite large, but so we can't really comprehend those small, especially in America, those small towns where it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles before they see somebody else. Yeah. You know, and there's some people that live in America that don't ever leave their town, let alone their state, let alone their country. Yeah. You know, and to us that's quite difficult to look at. The kids could have power over these adults. Yeah, yeah. Because sometimes whenever you're a kid, you feel like you're powerless. Powerless, yeah. Yeah, especially completely. When an adult is involved, because they're older, they're wiser, and it's only as you get older you realise not all adults are good people and not all adults know what they're talking about, and you know, that loss of innocence. And I think it comes back to, and we talked about it, Into the Woods, you know, when Red meets the wolf, and she doesn't at any point say that she regrets that, and she just says nice is different than good, and she, you know, it's just that if you really look at her song, she just talks about, things are different now because I now know that the world isn't as bright and cheerful as what I once thought it to be. It's not bad now, it's just different. Different, yeah. Yeah, so... deep. That's what I mean. Yeah, it's deep. You might not necessarily... This might not necessarily have worked in America because of the deepness of it. True. Well, what about that expression, whistle down the wind? Did you know what that meant? What, to whistle down the wind? Mm-hmm. No. So, it does mean to let go or to abandon. Oh, okay. But it's funny because the song which is called Whistle Down the Wind, is a song.
Whistle down the wind.
Now, is that the Tina Arena version?
Let your voices carry. It's a beautiful song.
The mum sang this, and then we're introduced to the song when the dad's singing it, and the kids go, "Oh, mum sang it better."
Yeah. Mum sang it better.
Yeah. It's the promise not to abandon, but Whistle Down the Wind actually means to abandon. So it's funny that the song.
Well, that's it, because it's got a whole within that song. It's got a whole series of images about lighting bonfires and stemming the tide and burning torches and howling at the stars, whispering you're sleeping, crying, every possible thing a human being can do to send a signal to someone else that says, please be here with me, I'm in trouble. Yeah. It's basically an emotional SOS call.
Yeah, I know, which is crazy.
But what clever lyrics and writing, right?
Yeah. And Whistle Down the Wind is actually mentioned first, apparently, in Othello.
Oh, right, okay.
So Othello says of Desdemona, I said that right,
Desdemona?
Desdemona, his lover, and he says, if I do prove her haggard, though that her jesses hear my dear heartstrings, I'll whistle her off and let her down the wind. To prey at fortune, he will have nothing to do with her if she is cheating. So he has been told that she is cheating, which she isn't, and he will say, I'll whistle her off and let her down the wind.
Isn't that interesting? So that is like, they had to have got that from Othello. Yeah. So there's that in Whistle Down the Wind. Then Vaults of Heaven. Yeah. The lyric, the nights have been growing darker, even darker than before, is an allusion to the poem that appears in the 1963 novel The Chill by Ross MacDonald, a reading of which appeared in Pandora's Box in the 1989 album Original Sin. And its lyrics are, if light were dark and dark were light, the moon a black hole in the blaze of night, a raven's wing as bright as tin, then you, my love, would be darker than sin. So they've clearly like plucked, wee bits from various other, significant pieces of literature. Oh, here we're going into classroom now.
Love it.
I remember obviously being a kid, right? Yes. Watching this. And in the song No Matter What, one of the kids sings, I got a great big seashell. You put it to your ear. Then you can hear the ocean. It's like you're really there. And that was literally what I believed and what I was told. When you picked up a seashell and you put it to your ear, it does sound like you can hear the sea. And I just was like, oh, it's true. Yeah. They're singing it too. Yeah. Cute, right?
Yeah, really cute. That is lovely. That most people will know that song no matter what because Boyzone sang it, and Boyzone were only able to sing it because Stephen Gately was a fan of musicals, and he actually approached Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Okay.
And at the time, or just shortly after, he ended up being in Joseph.
Yeah.
But yes, he approached and said that he would really love to sing, and Andrew Lloyd Webber thought this would be a good way to promote the musical, so gave it to one of the largest boy bands. The lyrics are slightly different on stage compared to what Boyzone sing. But a beautiful song.
Absolutely. It was released as a single and then had unprecedented success. It went platinum and was voted the UK's Record of the Year 1998, and then obviously a number one hit in the UK, and was included in the huge hit of a film that was Notting Hill.
Yeah, that's right.
So that concept album was quite successful. Do you know, it had a real it was a collaboration between, Jim Steinman's clients, those artists he wrote for, and then big names in musical theatre. Like the artists included Tom Jones, Tina Arena, Boyzone, as we've mentioned, then Liam Page, Donny Osmond, the Everly Brothers, Sounds of Blackness, and Bonnie Tyler.
And
big
actually,
names.
If you do a bit of research on Whistle Down the Wind, the concept album is actually the first thing that comes up. It's not the musical. And trying to get an original cast recording sometimes the concept album comes up and like, I don't want to listen to Tom Jones.
I want to listen to the soundtrack.
That's all my musical lyrical lingo. That's all I learned. But
the other two big things I learned were this. And I remember at the time of watching it, it was probably the parts of the show that made me most scared. This talk of revival meetings and snake handling. Yeah. Like, I had never heard of anything like that. Do you know what I mean? And obviously it was an interview I read by Jim Steinman was very interesting with regards to why they changed it to Louisiana, which then links in with these revival meetings and the snake handling. Originally, when Andrew Lloyd Webber approached Jim Steinman about being involved in Whistle Down the Wind, he wasn't sure. He thought like Whistle Down the Wind was a great fable and a great sort of mythical little tale, but wasn't sure if it would make good music. So it was only when Andrew Lloyd Webber then asked him, well, what do you think about setting it in America, that Jim Steinman immediately thought of the Deep South. And he wanted to set it in the Deep South to capture the same essence of Tennessee Williams and To Kill a Mockingbird, and to write a musical that wasn't for old people and their parents, but a musical that had mainstream appeal, right? So then Louisiana, why Louisiana? He needed Jim Steinman felt he needed a setting that lends itself to eruptions of songs and a setting of heightened extremism. Louisiana is was an incredible treasure, he said. So musically, it was a wonderfully colourful place, Louisiana. Plus, in terms of the plot, it was great because Louisiana was really is in the Bible Belt in America. And you mentioned about, these places that are really away from everywhere. You had mentioned that earlier, and I was like, oh, that links in with my musical lyrical lingo. So people every minute of their lives were obsessed with religion and the Bible in a way that isn't the same elsewhere. And it made sense to set it in a world where people would believe that Jesus Christ had returned, because every minute of their lives they're being told Jesus is coming back. You'd better prepare yourself to recognize him. They visited New Orleans for research purposes, and a lot of the story is based on a town called Donaldsonville.
Right, okay.
And Steinman said, I swear it could have been 1959. Obviously, when he visited, it wasn't. He said the cars were the same, and literally every car had a bumper sticker about Jesus. In every store window, there was a sign that mentioned Jesus. Religion was rampant, he said. It was everywhere. It was like entering a whole different world, not a sophisticated, questioning, cynical world. So fast forward to these revival meetings. They were big in places like that. Revival meetings are Christian religious events designed to rekindle or increase enthusiasm for faith and religious practices. Fine, absolutely. But it was a common practice for a lot of these revival meetings to include snake handling, or sometimes known as serpent handling, as a religious rite observed in a small number of isolated churches. Snake handling had been a practice in the South since the turn of the century, and it was based on Jesus' word in Mark 16, in my name they will pick up serpents, they will drink any deadly thing, it will not hurt them. So these worship services usually included singing, praying, speaking in tongues and preaching. At the front of the church behind the pulpit, it was a designated snake handling area. Believers may approach to the front, pick up the snakes, usually raising them above their head or into the air. And sometimes snakes were allowed to slither all over their bodies. Rattlesnakes, cottonmouths, and copperheads, venomous snakes of Native America, were common practice, and even cobras had been used. Some believers also engaged in drinking poison. Like, all of those activities just seem like mind-blowing to us. Do you know what I mean? Yet here they were presented in this musical, and here I was sitting as a child going,
what's going on, yeah.
You know, and like some of those numbers, you better be prepared to wrestle with the devil. And the, you know, the young kids, like Swallow's younger siblings, were like, oh, please take us to the revival meetings. Like, you know, we want to see the snakes. But like that in itself was scary and like had that scary undertone within the musical. And I had no idea about any of that.
Yeah. No, and I suppose because it's a small, and it goes back to what I sort of said about the dangers of unchecked belief, or, you know, just because this was a small town and they were all doing it, they didn't really have many outsiders coming in going, oh, I don't know if this is exactly what you should be doing, or that's exactly what, you know, Jesus meant, or whatever. You know, they just thought, yep, this is it, and we're doing it. And, you know, there was nobody to question it. So it was okay. It was accepted.
Yeah. I kind of think it's one of those musical soundtracks that people might not have listened to.
Yeah.
And I think you should go and listen to them, because also it's great in that you get the storyline, you get the plot throughout from the soundtrack. You can follow it really easily. But there's some really, really beautiful pieces of music. Like, I think some of Andrew Lloyd Webber's good stuff comes from this musical.
There's a real change. Like, there is some real rocky songs there. Like I said, you know, if you're a fan of Bat Out of Hell, you will recognise it. But there are, as you said, there's some real delicate songs. But yes, that is one thing. And I suppose because he was so good at writing concept albums, you can get the story from just listening to it. And you feel that angst.
Yeah, you definitely do.
Oh my goodness. You know, a bit like, do you know, in West Side Story, like, we're gonna da 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 da. Do you know that sort of like rhythm? You've got that, like, especially in what's the song? Nature of the Beast. Yeah. You know, like, that is like, you're like, oh, something's going to happen, and I need to be prepared for what it is. So I think that's...
Is that your stand ovation then?
Yeah, When Children Rule the World and Nature of the Beast. I do like Kiss Is a Terrible Thing to Waste.
Me too. That's that's one of mine. I just think the man who is the convict, or who they believe is Jesus, some of his songs are beautiful. And I think, I'm going to get technical here, there's parts of it, there's a lot of it that he does in his falsetto, which makes him sound vulnerable and makes him like, it's weird. He is a convict, obviously, but you like totally feel for him. Like, you almost are on his side at times.
Because you're seeing it through the eyes of the children.
Yes.
So therefore you're seeing it through the eyes of the kids who believe that he's Jesus. And, you know, whether you believe or not, you believe that Jesus is a good person. So therefore you're seeing him and you're going, well, he must have been set up. He mustn't
but
be.
Musically, it's written in that way too.
Exactly.
And then he switches in the same song. You know, he'll be floating like a bird, singing these beautifully falsetto phrases, and then it's almost like a growl. Do you know what I mean? Because he has angst in him as well. So I love unsettled scores that he sings. And Kiss Is a Terrible Thing to Waste. I also do like. Try Not to Be Afraid. Yeah. Oh, it rips my wee heart out. But obviously, Children Rule the World's the one that stays with us. I also loved Vaults of Heaven too.
So I like Vaults of Heaven.
It's a great opener.
But I also, every time I hear it, and I have to go and listen to it, there's elements of Jurassic Park in that.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, Lauren.
There definitely are. But yeah, I like Vaults of Heaven too. Do you know what I sometimes see? And it's not, you know how my brain works. Whistle Down the Wind and Footloose. If Footloose went in a dark direction, and you've got, like, do you know how Footloose is like a small town?
Yeah.
With the weird sort of rules. And then you've got Whistle Down the Wind. If you were having to put on a series of shows with similar-esque themes, I would be putting them in the same
You think they're similar?
bill. Yeah.
Just because of the small town mentality?
Just because of the small town. Right. There's something going on there. You know,
underlying currents.
There's an outsider that comes in, not always for good. I just think they're not the same. Yeah. They're not the same, but you could almost put them a bit like how you can put, like, you know, all musicals based on historical events together. They're not the same. They're not talking about the same historical event, but you could group them together.
But as we do this podcast, that list is growing. Who knew so many musicals were based on political events or political figures?
Who knew?
I did allude to it a couple of episodes ago, just how much I love this episode or this podcast for reintroducing me to, you know, musicals or soundtracks that you maybe haven't listened to for a long time. And this was one of these. Like, I really did go down, you know, memory lane 100%. With this. And I went, oh my goodness, this is a flipping brilliant musical and a brilliant soundtrack. So thank you, Musical Lyrical Lingo, for reintroducing. Like, I had a fantastic week. I listened to it in the car for like every day, and I was just like, oh, this is brilliant.
Same, and I think I listened to it so much. So let's give a wee bit of background. It was 2002. It was a tour was coming to Belfast, and our stage girl was approached to have the children. Yeah, and we
to supply them.
You know, we obviously had to be a certain height and age, and we weren't selected.
We didn't make the cut,
but that didn't mean that we weren't practicing. We weren't singing the songs.
That's right.
You know, so we were doing it, and obviously our siblings were in it, so we probably were like, it was like a double-edged sword, because we didn't get chosen.
Just kick a kid while they're down, why not?
So a lot of the time we were singing these songs, and like definitely when Children Rule the World, like that was in. So listening to it, I was like, it was bringing back some really lovely memories. Yeah. So then I wanted to research that tour, which was really difficult to find. So I wonder, was it a non-equity tour or something?
I don't know.
It was a little bit difficult. But Tim Rogers played the man.
Yes.
Katie Raleigh Jones played Swallow, and she's the original Nessa Rose.
So she is.
Scott Cripps was Amos, the dad. Yeah. Adelaide Thompson, she was Candy, and Mark.
Was Amos not the young boy?
Oh, the young boy. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. And then Mark Insco Bone, he played Phantom.
Oh, there you go.
So there was
they've all gone on to do really well for themselves, haven't they?
Some really nice things. But yeah, that was fun as well, because that was kind of a newish musical at the time. You know, we were also involved in Joseph, which wasn't a newish musical, but this was new. Yeah. So that's what I always remember about about Whistle Down the Wind is, it's a new musical.
Yeah. So there we go.
There we go.
That was a really lovely episode.
Do go and listen to the music.
Please do listen to it, because it is brilliant. Like, it's a great soundtrack. Absolutely brilliant. And I would love, and we know this, the way that our podcast works, we put it out there and it tends to happen 9 times out of 10. Yep. I think it is time that somebody did a revival. Do it.
You do it.
I
did
on. Sure. It's a show I'd love to work on.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Just because there's an enthusiasm in me for the show.
And because it's kind of kid-based as well.
Yeah, and I do love working with the kid. Like, give me young performers any day.
Might be a good, like, teenage one to do.
I mean, it's a great one for the amateur world, and a few companies have done it, but I'd love to do a large-scale one. I think it'd be class.
Okay, that's your next project.
No, I'm all right, thanks. Do you have What Would Paddy Do?
Oh, yes. What would Paddy do?
To end our episode... and then we can get prepared for the monster that is about to come our way.
It's exciting. Okay, so would you rather, or Paddy, perform the lead role in your favourite musical?
Okay.
Or be in the ensemble of a musical you don't like?
Oh, that's kind of an obvious one, isn't it? Like... Do you know what? I'm just going to be in the ensemble of this really crap show. I think I'll give that a go. No, dear. I'm going to be the lead role in my favourite musical. But the problem with that question is I don't know what my favourite musical is.
Well, I would just say Oklahoma. If you had to do one of the lead roles, you're going to go back to Will.
But the role that I've done it 3 times. Like, I can't keep flogging that dead horse. Like, I've done it. There are people out there that would do it far better than me now, I'm sure.
Well,
I am award winning,
let's just not think that. Just perform a lead role in your favorite musical. So it might be a part that like might not suit you, and you have to perform it.
I'm still going to be a lead role, okay. Lauren. I'm not going in the ensemble, although you learn your best work in the ensemble.
Yeah, 100% do.
But I think I've done my years in the ensemble, so I'm ready to take the lead role. Aye.
See, I knew the performance bug wasn't quite out of you.
Oh no, it's completely diminished. Like, there's not a hope of me getting back on stage ever again. But these are hypothetical, aren't they? What's not hypothetical is what we're doing next week. I think we tell them because let's be honest, I would say there's a lot of our listeners that have waited a very long time for this moment. And we're not throwing away our shot.
No, we're not.
What are we doing?
We are doing Hamilton.
God, strap in. I'm having cold sweats thinking about it.
We are going for it. Yeah, it's taken us 3 years.
For a reason.
It's a large musical.
It's blooming massive. Right, I don't have time to talk anymore. I need to go and do a bit of research on this bad boy. Okay. Well, so you may come back now. I mean, if you don't come back next week, there's something wrong with you. Call yourself a musical theatre fan. We're doing Hamilton.
Yeah, join us then.
Bye.
Tune in as the memories grow.